the director of Institute of Creative Arts under niche banner. And then we have Mr. Ivan Duran, who is the owner of Stone Tree Records and also the director of the Belize Music Project. All right?
Yep.
And so I'm really excited about this conversation. I know and had the privilege of working with both Miss Kim and Carlo before in different capacities. It's my first time meeting you, Mr. Ivan, today, but your work precedes you. The music and the artist that has come out of Stone Tree Record is something that the entire country is proud of, and so kudos to you as well. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Right? All right, and so I'm going to jump straight in
Yes.
because I don't want time to run out on us.
We don't want that to happen.
All right. And so we're going to be talking today about the orange economy, and I want to start off with talking a little bit about policy,
Yes.
which we know is very important.
Yeah.
And so since you're looking at me, Miss Kim, I'm going to start with you.
I had a feeling you would pick on me first.
Yeah, we're going to be starting
Yes.
with you. And so, Ms. Kim, how is national policy supporting investment in Belize cultural and creative industries?
First of all, I'm glad that we kind of trade positions this year because the last time I was at BIS, I was the moderator, and we were talking about how entrepreneurship. Carla was also on that panel. We were talking about how entrepreneurship is transforming the creative sector. I got really excited when I looked at the topic for this panel. Yes, I was glad that I wasn't the moderator and that you were going to be in the hot seat.
Yeah.
But it's what I zeroed in on beyond art. And that is going to be the heart of it when we talk about policy and how we can, attract investments for the creative sector. I think it's important to say as well, to frame the discussion, that we need to look not only at the respective disciplines, because we still do that a lot in Belize. We still look at and we still think of the orange economy in terms of dance and film and music, and even now content creation, which is rapidly developing. But we want to also, and policy does speak to that. There are a lot of good initiatives that are looking at developing artist development, as well as developing the creative and cultural entrepreneurs. But we are not just going to focus on that, and that's not what we're doing. We're moving beyond that, and we have to. We are also looking at the creative ecosystem. And that, I think, is the mental shift that we all need to make when we talk about the orange economy, is realizing that we have a thriving creative ecosystem and there is room and opportunities across that value chain. And I told him I would pick on him because he's right over there. Sean from LED is an example. And so we want to also recognize that the creative economy is at work even when we are not being entertained, because he's the one powering the screen and he's the one that mic'd us up, and he's very much creative economy. And next week, Saturday, he's going to be a part of another value chain. He's going to be at Panyard, where he will be lighting the stage. We'll be using his stages, but he will be a part of a greater value chain. He'll be working with the audio engineers. He'll be working with Ricky Alcocer. I saw him here as well, live stream. So it's not just the panis on stage playing the steel pan. It's even Miss Derla who will be selling that nice cultural, that nice fire heart rice and beans. All of those come together when you look at just that value chain of one concert or one festival, like Panyard. And so we can move away at looking at just the individual disciplines, dance, music, drama, and even the products, a film, a concert, a festival, those are products. But when we really look at what we have here in Belize, we have, like I said, a thriving ecosystem, and there is value across that ecosystem. And when we look at policy and policy development, that is where we are moving. Yes, there's fantastic programs. I want to make mention of BEEP, or our friends from BELTRAIDE who spearheaded BEEP, along with us as partners, Niche, BCCI, who are also partners. And I know that you will know about BEEP as well, David,
Yes,
right?
I was a recipient.
You are a beneficiary, right? But the wonderful thing about the policy where the orange economy and why I love the way the policy is going on a national level is that it's not just focusing on giving the grant. There is so much comprehensive business development that went into BEEP, where you guys got to do your business plan. And you didn't do it in isolation, Beltrade never said go off and do it on your own. No, they were there to help you. And then you went through that pitch process. And then, like I said, there was so much business training as well. That is the type of policy we are developing nationally to move the sector forward. And it's the same thing we do at Niche with our Belize Culture Fund, which is now in its second cycle. We're not just looking to give the grant and then say goodbye when we hope you do well. No, we're looking to build relationships with our cultural stakeholders so that beyond the grant, we are ready to roll you over into the next program, the next opportunity, the next initiative. We're working with you with a face. You individually, David, you individually, the artists out there. We want to work with you to build that relationship with you, and that is a part of our policy development framework. And lastly, I want to signal the biggest one. In July of this year, Niche, through its Institute of Creative Arts, with support from UNESCO and the EU, launched our national strategy and roadmap for the cultural and creative sector. This is a landmark project. We are pleased to be partnering with many of our government partners, but most importantly, at the center of that policy development are the creative and cultural workers, the artists that will inform us. But what it will do is that it will, in fact, give us a cohesive and clear plan. Because if we want commercial banks, if we want investors to take us seriously, we have to have a plan. And that is where we're looking at, yes, what is going to come next beyond the grant? And as I said, how do we look at the entire creative ecosystem, the value chain, and see that it is more than just dance, music, drama, the individual disciplines? And how can we move the entire creative ecosystem forward?
Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to jump to you, Mr. Habit. I know personally, my 9 to 5 is in film and animation specifically. And you being the film commissioner, I wanted to ask you this question. We know film is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. What investment is needed to position Belize as a competitive film production hub?
It's a good question. And thanks for having me here, first of all. It's a great forum, I think, especially to attract the investment that we're talking about. And so I want to mention a few areas in the sense that it's a multi-pronged investment strategy, and a large part of it has to be undertaken, at this point at least, by public sector. And luckily, we're at the position right now where the Film Commission is looking to be expanded by end of the year with great support from Niche. So there is this vision. They do understand where we're going. But as you've noted, there's a lot of investment that needs to be made. Where infrastructure is one, and you're looking at things like spaces, studios. You're looking at like sound stages. You're looking at like just very high price equipment that people need. Cameras. Sound capture. It's a lot. This is something that we're looking at stimulating specifically by getting industry standard equipment and allowing it to be rented out and actually granted out for people who have great films and great ideas. Because yes, the mandate of the Film Commission is to bring films to Belize and to bring dollars in, but at the same time, and something we'll touch on later, I think in your second question, is basically how do we also develop an identity of our own on film that then actually helps us to market Belize even further as a cultural destination, as a product, as a place, as a people. But coming back to the investment side of it, outside of infrastructure, which is incredibly important and something that can be taken care of quite easily with writing a check, there's also capacity development, which is really
Yes.
important, especially in an age like we're in right now with, let's say, AI, where you could do a lot of things, but it takes a lot of know-how, it takes a lot of development, and it takes people who have experience to kind of come in and show you the way in a lot of senses. So while it's easy to learn things without, let's say, the typical classroom, there still is a place for that. And so We actually embarked on something centering around this with the Belize Film Exchange. I think you're aware of it. And we actually gave out over 40 certificates over the last couple of months. And we had done a film intensive that really ran the gamut from pre-production all the way through to post. And the next one we're looking to put on in November will be centering around acting, actually, which is the one thing that we didn't. Everything was behind the camera, so that's the next step, actually. But by collaborating with Ministry of Education and the IT vet system, we're able to basically give certificates that give some sort of worth to these people and allow them to then work on film sets that would come to Belize and would need this. So we want to go out and market directly to this audience of producers, location scouts, people like that. But at the same time, we need to make sure the capacity here can handle those sort of productions, right? It is a fairly high level of skill that's required and experience. And so we need to build that experience. And there's no other way than to have people who are professionals, who have done this type of work in the past. And that, again, is something that we facilitated with the BFX because we had a lot of, and I heard the minister mention earlier the diaspora. A lot of Belizeans who are working in the industry took their time to come in and teach people and kind of give them a walkthrough. And they were very happy because they said, you did this. And so I trust you. That seems very basic, right? But to know that someone's saying, okay, this is how you do it, gives you the confidence to then sort of like carry on and then the experience that you could work for people know. That is really important because the level of professionalism that's sort of at play at the film industry is something that's beyond what we're used to here. So I think the capacity building there is huge for our people. And then also that allows us to make our own films, right? So there's like a season that we've been noticing. There's like a high season and a low season for filmmaking in Belize, the same way that there is for tourism. And when there's a low season, we want Belizeans to be able to, at least that's the vision, to make their own films, which would then help to really put Belize on the map otherwise, but also drive a local economy. So there's actual, looking at like plant equipment, you're looking at capacity building, but then you also have to invest in a policy framework, which is also something that we're doing right now, something that contemplates incentives, but is still sustainable for Belize. We still want to make money and we don't want to just throw money at people to come here. Usually when that happens, as soon as incentives dry up, the business dries up too. So we want to, I think, ideally create long-term relationships with certain studios, production houses that, they would keep coming back, that they love doing business here in general, they do business the right way. And I think that's what we're trying to cultivate right now. And that's what I mentioned earlier too, about expanding the capacity of the Film Commission itself to better support these large productions that need a lot of support, right? And we have to work with various agencies like, customs, immigration, labor. And so how do we find, sort of unique and novel ways to make it easier for people to come in, get work permits, not have a lot of red tape, but also contribute to, the tax coffers as well. So that's the three main areas that I would say we're looking at currently, and that's what's necessary. And I do feel very encouraged about the future, at least knowing that the vision is shared and that it's something that we're actually actively investing in as we speak.
All right, very good. And I'm glad you touched on capacity building because that's something dear to me. All right, so Mr. Ivan, I want to touch a bit on music. That is dear to me as well. My heart is split in so many places, right? But how are Belizean musicians tapping into the international markets and revenue stream?
Well, as you know, the last 20 years have seen a great revolution and transformation, digital transformation of many industries, including the music industry globally, which brought a lot of challenges for record labels, for artists. But in Belize, I think it has been generally a positive thing, right? For the first time in history, artists had the ability to reach an audience, not only in Belize, but also globally. Belizean artists tend to be very resourceful, as we know. Many artists have been able to build their own audiences. Some of them tour regionally, others internationally. But I think one of the biggest deficiencies, and there are many, and we would never have time to touch on them in one session, but what I found is that a lot of artists in Belize struggle identifying their market
Mhm.
and identifying what is their place in the world. And why I'm saying this, because Belize as a country, as a small economy, needs to find that niche market where it can shine, as opposed to being drowned by mass consumption, mass products, and heavy competition that has multiple times of more investment that we can attract here in Belize, right? So obviously we all know about the one successful story with Andy Palacio crossing over in Europe. But after so many years, we still haven't been able to duplicate that, which I find quite disappointing because I've always believed that the talent is here.
Mhm.
But often the efforts are misdirected. Like Kim was saying, like music has its own ecosystem, even though we love dance and film and everything, but we musicians, we are in our own little bubble. And in Belize, for example, the last 15 years, we have had an explosion of home studios. We have dozens of studios around the country. Some of them small operations at home, in a bedroom, that are producing great quality sound.
Mhm.
And now we have the challenge of, okay, how do we channel all this music? And that will require a lot of thinking and a lot of strategic planning and funding. And before we get to private funding, I think we really need to look at public funding, giving artists tools. And I know BELTRAIDE has had programs. The European Union through CARICOM has had grants, for example. But we need a lot more than that.
Mhm.
We need tour support. For example, touring internationally today has become almost prohibitive for bands from Belize. Just have a recent example, the Garifuna Collective, just getting US visas, for example, these are work permits, was close to $25,000. This is before you even leave the country. So we're talking that it is very challenging and we need support from institutions and perhaps sponsors and government. And so yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm extremely hopeful because I know the musicians and I know the artists and I know that why they're doing what they do, and this is a true passion of them. They almost never give up,
Mhm.
right? And once we find the right channels and we get the right support, I think a lot of things can happen for music in Belize.
That's good. There's like 4 or 5 follow-up questions I had to what you said, but I know we can't get into those. So um, let's see how time goes. I wanna come back to Miss Kim. I know Mr. Ivan was talking about the Garifuna collectives, and um, I think they really represent culture, right? Represent the Garifuna culture and the Belizean culture as a whole. Um, so I would like to touch a little bit on that whole era of culture. So, what role does cultural tourism play in expanding opportunities for Belizean artists and creators?
Oh, well, definitely cultural tourism is one of the biggest drivers of the orange economy in Belize and where there is a lot of untapped potential and where we can turn challenges into actual opportunities. If you look at the music sector, for example, we may not be exporting a lot of music, but we have here in Belize a thriving music industry. We have where even now, I can tell you it is difficult to just book artists on the fly. Artists are being booked and work and have steady gigs. And more than ever before, I see where musicians are more and more increasingly earning a living wage from music. So I think that when you marry that with tourism, that is looking at one of the ways in which we can start to bridge some of the development challenges. But again, I want to come back again to the ecosystem. And I'm going to use the example of Lobster Fest. Lobster Fest has been around for quite a long time. It is 100% scalable. It should have been scaled a long time. Again, it has everything. It has its full value chain. It takes place across multiple tourist destinations across the country. Placencia, Kikaker, San Pedro. And yes, lobster is the product on the menu, but it's also the lineup of the artists. And with the lineup of the artists, again, it's Sean who is going to go out there to set up the stage. It's Alobando who is going to be the audio engineer. It's going to be all of the creative artisans that will have booths out there across all those destinations. It's the hotel industry. Yes, of course, it's going to be the chefs. Yes, it's going to be, and again, the spin off. It's going to be the purchasing of the produce that will go into making all of those different types of lobster dishes. So again, we look at, you mentioned the Garifuna culture and the Garifuna collective. But what about the 19th of November Garifuna settlement day? It doesn't have to have the word festival attached to it for it to become a festival attraction that can draw not only the diaspora but regional and global tourism into Belize as well. So I definitely think that it's an area that we are not fully exploiting, but investments and both private and public can do a lot to catapult cultural tourism and the orange economy, tie them together.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kim. We're getting a bit pressed on time, so I'll move right along. So, Mr. Carlo, again, along in the lines of tourism, how can the film industry contribute to tourism promotion and economic development?
Getting to put this on. So I think talking first about economic development, tourism is tied really intimately to filmmaking, at least the way it's currently structured in Belize, in the sense that people come from abroad, usually the United States, but we also get some European productions as well. When they come, they have to stay somewhere, right? They need to get rentals. They need to get caterers. So they typically, I guess, live like tourists. So more people means just more dollars being spent, and that's foreign money that's coming in. So we didn't have it before. This obviously leads to things like more jobs, or at least more sustained jobs. At the same time, once we're getting to a point where we're actually handling more of them, we have more capacity to handle more films. You're creating new jobs, right? In the industry itself, right, which is important. So that's the economic growth you're talking about, that stimulus. But also, too, if rooms are staying booked for longer and we're sort of bridging that low season, as I mentioned earlier, people are having better jobs for longer, too, right? So there's just more money coming in at a more steady flow, I would say. So that's one way economic, I would say, growth happens. I think on another level, too, as these films are being made, something very simple happens, which is they're shown in other regions. People get to know our country, they get to know our landscape, they get to know our people, they get to know our culture. And then that promotes Belize really, as was touched on earlier, as a cultural product. I think Belize also is very unique in that we have a very interesting and sustainable model, right, that a lot of places are trying to replicate. But it's been something that's been a part of our pitch, tourism-wise, since the beginning. People just generally like us as a people. We have a very unique way of living. We're very easygoing. People like that. So people, when they come, the few people that do make the films, they're actually quite happy with the Belizean experience, with the professionals that they do utilize, with the ease of doing business, the fact that we speak English, But again, it's a safe jurisdiction that they can come into. They feel good about that. I think outside of foreign films that are being made, by stimulating the industry, and getting more Belizean made films, we then get to put our identity out there in our own words, right? We then get to show the world who we really are. But again, I think that's also like a soft power. The US has been really good at exporting their own culture. I think we could do that. That's a model for us, essentially. But I think because we're such a naturally likable people and such a beautiful place, just by having more films out there that are Belizean, that are shot in Belize, it just sort of kindles an interest in people to come to Belize. And so I think, interestingly enough, there's just so much growth to be had. And then as that happens, obviously, then we talk again about more economic stimulus because more people are coming, more hotels are going up, there's more caterers, more rental companies, there's more people that are handling, doing fixing, these kind of things. So there's just more jobs, and there's more jobs for, again, longer periods of time throughout the year. So I just feel like that in itself is sort of like a great cycle that kind of, begets the other one.
Good. And I I like what you said about exporting film. I remember sitting in the Embassy of Japan invited me to a presentation by Dr. Mitsuteru Takahashi from Digital Hollywood University, and he said something that was very important. He said animation is more than economic power; it's cultural power. And I think that is something that is, I think, for us to get our films and our music and everything out there, it's cultural power for us. I just think that's very important.
Indeed. And animation is extremely important too. And I mean, you're in that field, but that's something too that we don't really think about, but that's actually more easily exportable. People could actually come to us and outsource all of that animation here, right? Rather than you have to go anywhere. So that's actually a very interesting niche that you're in that I think is kind of prime and we need to develop as well.
Yeah, good. And that's where the capacity building comes in, right?
Indeed.
And so, Mr. Ivan, I have the last question for you here. So, what role does investment in music production and distribution play in growing the creative economy?
You notice you only left me 2 minutes. It's fine. um, yes, well, I don't have a clear answer for that.
Mhm.
Because I've always seen the music industry as almost non-existent or just a nascent industry. And it's not because we don't have the numbers, which we do. We've never been really organized, and we've never been good at coming together as a creative industry and push forward. So I think we have still a lot of work to do in gaining the skills, developing the skills, and then gaining the respect and the confidence that whatever investment is put into this industry will bring the necessary fruits. So if we look at examples as, let's say, the cane industry, the Cañeros have been fighting for many, many decades, right? And great investment has been made in industries such as the sugar industry. And we see a clear results, right? The number of tons of sugar exported, etc. Quantifying music sometimes is very subjective, right? Not necessarily record sold, millions sold. It's so many things, and the value runs across many different sectors. Obviously, tourism, brand building of Belize abroad, etc. So, just in closing, what I'm really hoping is that there's more investments into the industry in programs to give better training
Okay.
to artists and associated jobs around the music industry. And hopefully in the next decade, we can start talking about better organization, better systems in place for Belizean artists being able to strive, not only in Belize, but also in the region and abroad.
Okay. So you mentioned about investment in programs and
Training, yeah,
training
what we
programs,
call capacity building,
capacity
but
building.
training, and not only the artists, because in many ways we do have that for the most part. the talent is there, but you need managers, you need sound engineers, you need stage managers, you know, tour managers, business-minded people, giving that support to the artistic community.
Okay. I know time is up, but I want to throw this last question at you, and maybe you can answer it in 10 seconds. You said that there's an issue with bringing everybody together. So what, if you could say the first step, you being in the industry so long, what do you think is the first thing needed to bring everybody together, start farming that togetherness in the music scene?
If I knew the answer, we would have done it long time ago. I think that runs deep. Belize is still a work in progress. I was born before independence. My parents always told me that, you know, it's your job to build Belize. So whatever you do, never think that this job is done and you just want to take advantage of whatever opportunity. You have to build your own opportunities and you have to start thinking long term. And this won't take 2 years, 5 years. We're talking 10, 20. And yeah, so this is a work in progress. And what we need to do is just put in the work. Not just one or two or just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. Actually get up, the work.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Carlo, Mr. Ivan, and Ms. Kim. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the panel. Please give them a big round of applause. I have to say this, Ivan. You didn't mention MEAB, but you did that initiative a long time ago, which is important, right?